I set up this register to help me get my prints lined up since I was doing multiple layers. I saw this in one of the videos I watched, and I really liked how they had the linoleum fit inside the cardboard and then a tape register for where to line up the paper. The first layer I did was the background, and I love using this extender because it helps the ink not dry too quickly, especially if I'm doing lots of layers or I might have to step away to help a student with something. It also seems to help my students get nice, smooth ink onto their linoleum. Took me a few tries to use the register correctly. I have a tendency not to be super cautious, so sometimes the paper wasn't lined up perfectly with the tape. I'm using my brayer to get my ink nice and even onto my paper, and I'm using the same trick I show my students. Lift the paper up, check your ink before you pull it all the way up. Not too bad for our first one. I used a variety of ink colors and a variety of papers so I could get lots of different combinations. And one of the benefits of using the multi-block print instead of carving away into the same linoleum is that I can also go back and do even more experimenting with colors. Here are some of the other colors I did. Most of them are on white paper, but a few are on colorful paper. I wasn't sure if I wanted a warm sun background or a cool water type background. Next, some of my prints will get a silhouette. This is the second layer I decided to add once I had carved the first layer. It'll be only the silhouette of the animals, and it'll sit on top of the first layer before I add the details. Again, I'm lining it up with the corner, trying to be super careful. But I'll notice that even as careful as I was being, sometimes my image didn't line up perfectly. However, I felt it was close enough that it created a really cool effect. Checking to make sure all of my ink is on my paper one more time before I lift up. Here's my first attempt. And here's some more. You can see most of these backgrounds are white, but I went back later and I decided to add the silhouette in other colors too. All of my layer 3 prints were done in black. I wanted to get that feeling that they were a nice crisp drawing. Before I added any of these to my prints, I did a test print to make sure that my lines were carved deep enough. As you can see where the monkey is, some of the details are lost with inking, but I found that even though I couldn't see them inside the linoleum, it printed really nicely. I did find that I had to go in and clean some of the areas where the details were really minute, making sure that the ink hadn't started to build up in some of the small designs. I made the mistake of inking on top of my register, so you can see I made a little bit of a mess, but luckily that area gets cropped off by the mat when I'm finished. Since I had some extra test prints, I decided to experiment with collaging the black layer on top of some of my single color prints where I only did the background and I didn't do the silhouette layer in the middle. I wanted to see if this gave me a crisper image or if it looked better to do the 3-layer prints and stick to a standard linoleum print design. I decided I wanted to add the frame, so I cut that out first. And then I went in and I cut out all of my animal images. And then I glued them on top of my layer 1 prints. So you can see what that might look like. Here you can see how my animal goes on top of the layer 1 print. And there's my frame. Here's examples. This is a 3-layer print. This is a 2-layer print where I skipped the middle 2nd layer. And this is an example of doing the collage.